In this lab, we will examine the parts of the urinary system. The renal or urinary system consists of the paired kidneys, the ureter, urinary bladder, and urethra. First slide is section in a human kidney. Each kidney has a thin fibrous capsule. Beneath the capsule, we can see the outer cortex, a darker region with rounded structures called renal corpuscles. Between the corpuscles, we can see cross sections of tubules. This is the outer cortex with rounded renal corpuscles and cross sections of tubules. This region is the inner medulla, consisting of tubules and ducts. This is inner medulla or renal medulla. Consisting of parallel aligned tubules and ducts. At higher magnification, we can see the renal corpuscle. This round structure is called renal corpuscle. Renal corpuscle is an initial portion of the nephron. It consists of glomerulus. This is a glomerulus consisting of capillaries surrounded by a double-walled capsule called Bowman capsule. Glomerulus with a tuft of capillaries surrounded by double-walled capsule called Bowman capsule. The outer layer of Bowman capsule, called parietal layer of Bowman capsule, which is composed of simple squamous epithelium. At the tip of the pointer, we can see flattened nucleus of simple squamous cell. The visceral layer is closely envelopes the glomerular capillaries. Between parietal and visceral layer, we can see a space called capsular or urinary space. Each renal corpuscle has two poles, vascular pole at this region. We can see the cells of distal convoluted tubule become modified from cuboidal to columnar cells. These cells are called macula densa. These cells are called macula densa. It consists of closely packed or densely packed columnar cells of distal convoluted tubule. Adjacent to the macula densa, tunica media of afferent arteriole also modified, forming juxtaglomerular granular cells called JG cells. Both macula densa and JG cells form the specialized sensory structure called juxtaglomerular apparatus. Macula densa, together with JG cells, forming a more specialized sensory organ or structure called juxtaglomerular apparatus. So this region called vascular pole of the renal corpuscle. This region is called the tubular pole, in which the proximal convoluted tubule begins. Tubular pole in which the proximal convoluted tubule begins. Between renal corpuscles, we can see cross sections of the tubules. This structure is called proximal convoluted tubule. It's lined by simple cuboidal epithelium. In a cross section, we can see from 3 to 5 cells in this section. The apical apex of each cell has microvilli forming a brush border. So this tubule has neurolumen, proximal convoluted tubule with neurolumen. Distal convoluted tubule is also lined by simple cuboidal epithelium, but with wider lumen. Distal convoluted tubule, wider lumen, due to the absence of brush border, we can see more number of cells, simple cuboidal epithelium, wider lumen, and no brush border. Any question about the renal cortex؟ فالمفروض انتوا هاي ماخديها تمام. within the medulla we can see the collecting ducts. Collecting duct is lined by simple columnar epithelium. Collecting ducts, long striated structure with simple columnar epithelium. Within the medulla, also we can see thick and thin segments of Henle's loop. Thick segment is lined by simple cuboidal epithelia. This is thick segment and this is thin segment. Thick segment lining epithelium, simple cuboidal epithelium, while thin segment is lined with low cuboidal or low columnar to simple squamous. We can see thin wall. Which type is this structure? Thick segment and this thin segment. This structure is lined with flattened nucleus. Simple squamous. Which type of structure? No. 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 هذه thin segments. Vasa recta. Vasa recta lined with simple squamous epithelial cells. This structure lined with flattened nucleus. This is vasa recta. تميزوه عن الثين segment إنه تكون النيوكليوس flattened. الثين segment تكون تقريبا النيوكلياي rounded with thin wall. Thick segment, thin segment, and this is vasa recta. This structure thin segment. In a human, the medulla consists from 8 to 12 medullary pyramids. At the tip of each pyramid is the renal papilla. Renal papilla open into the minor calyx. This is the minor calyx lined with the transitional epithelium. This is renal papilla open into the minor calyx. This is the transitional epithelium of the minor calyx. Any question about the kidney? Second slide is another section in a human kidney, but sustained by fast-sustained periodic acid ship reaction. This type of stain This is kidney. This is the outer cortex with renal corpuscles and the cross sections of tubules. And this is medulla, inner medulla. This type of staining is stained only the basement membrane. In this slide, we can see tubules and ducts extending from the medulla toward the cortex, forming the medullary rays. Medullary rays. Tubules and ducts extending from the medulla toward the cortex. These structures are called medullary rays. واضح؟ يعني هذه الصبغة أو هذا السلايد فقط medullary rays. This is renal corpuscle with the glomerulus. This is the cortex. And this is the medullary rays. Periodic acid shift reaction. Third slide is the cross section in the ureter. This is a cross section in the ureter. We can see mucosa with longitudinal folds, thick muscularis layer, and adventitia. At higher magnification, we can see the mucosa consisting of transitional epithelium, also called urothelium, beneath lamina propria of connective tissue. The transitional epithelium consists of or can be divided into three regions. A single layer of small basal cells resting on a thin basement membrane. An intermediate region consisting from one to several layers of columnar cells and superficial layer with umbrella or dome cells. This is dome or umbrella cell found in the superficial layer of transitional epithelium. These cells are sometimes binucleated, single layer of small basal cells resting on a thin basement membrane, intermediate region consisting from one to several layers of columnar cells, and superficial layer with dome or umbrella cells. What is the main function of umbrella cell? For dome cell. The surface area for expansion when the urinary you're getting the 15 full with urine. The expansion during the building of urine. Another function. It's important, very important function. Making up the city of culture. What of the year, Maria? Read her? What of the year, Maria? Anybody from what? Yes, the protection. Protect the underlying layers from cytotoxic effects of the hypertonic urine. Transitional epithelium, lamina propria. Thick muscularis layer and adventitia. Last slide section in the urinary bladder. The lining epithelium of urinary bladder is also transitional epithelium. Lamina propria, highly vascularized lamina propria, submucosa, muscularis layer consisting of 3 sublayers forming the trousers muscle. This is a transitional epithelium with dam cell. This cell is called dam or umbrella cell with 2 nuclei. All slides are stained by hematoxylin and eosine except for the second slide is stained by pacistine. Any question about the urinary system? قطعت حضور طلاب؟ شو هتسيبهم التسجيل ولا اندوكراين بعدين ونقطع على الأسبوع الآخر الامتحان. صلوا طلابكم اندوكراين مختبر لو على الأسبوع القادم يعني بعد العيد لأنه الإلدوكراين تقريبا 6-7 سلايدات. يعني نتفق مثلا تخلصون امتحان ناخذ المختبر تمام؟ مش ناقص الطاي وأكثر. أنا